Wait, like.
Hi, this is Beth Drucker. I'm with Go Green Illinois, the founder and co-facilitator, along with Kim Stone. Glad you can join us for our 70th meeting with environmental leaders in Chicagoland communities. We're so glad you're here. We have another program that we think you'll enjoy and find informative. The topic is how state and local legislation and ordinances can either help or hamper our abilities to go green in our communities. Given the recent election, I think it's really clear to all of us that the state and local environmental work is critically important. And so now more than ever, what you do in your communities is really, really important. So with that, I have a few announcements, and then Kim Stone will help by starting the program. This program is a little different in that, in addition to some organizations, we have our own Go Green leaders who are being called up to talk about things happening, ordinances in their own communities that are really important that we can learn from and replicate ideally. So make some notes. We do record this so you can watch it again. We do keep the chats as well. So just want to mention a couple of different things. The Illinois Parks and Recreation Association has a conference in January. I would encourage you to have your park district attend it. And because of some efforts on our part, they have a new sustainability segment as part of that conference. So we're very excited about that. Hope your communities can send somebody. The Green Schools Conference is March. If you are working with your school district, or even if you're not, getting people to that conference in Florida is really helpful. Kim Stone and I have asked to present at the Wild Things Conference locally here, March 1st, on how people can start environmental groups in their communities. We haven't yet been told whether we were accepted as speakers, but that would be a conference that all of you might be interested in attending. If you're interested in doing an EV car show in 2025, see whether or not you can do it in conjunction with another event that has a lot of people at it, specifically farmers markets or any other kinds of festivals. And I also have a special announcement about a new program called Hefty Renew. A couple of our Go Green leaders, Jacquelyn Casazza from Glen Ellyn and Seema Keshav from Vernon Hills, are very involved in Plastic Pollution Coalition. This is a new program that's being introduced in Lake County and perhaps soon Cook County, launched in conjunction with Waste Hauler LRS. The goal is the program is to divert plastics from the landfill, and residents will be asked to put certain hard to recycle plastics in a special bag and put it in your curbside toter. However, there are some concerns about the unintended consequences to human and environmental health as a result of those recycling processes, which is sometimes burning or mechanical processing. And so they are looking into this, and they want you all to put it on your radar screens so that if and when your community has an opportunity to do that, you realize that there's some additional information and that has to be included in a decision as to whether or not to do it. The people to talk to about is Jacquelyn Casazza, Seema Keshav, and Jessica Violitsek. And we're going to put their addresses in there. As we all know, we can't recycle our way out of our pollution and waste problem. And the more you look into some of the recycling, the more concerns there are about using that as our solution as opposed to stopping the use of it. And so
not Jessica, sorry, Beth, not Jessica, but Jenny Futterman.
Okay, Jenny Futterman, I'm sorry. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to co-facilitator Kim Stone, and she will introduce our program. Thanks again to all of you for being here.
Thanks, Beth. And thanks for everybody being here. This is a great turnout today, which is wonderful because this is such an important topic now more than ever since last week. So I want to just first mention, I've got one other announcement. CONSEC, which was the Coalition of North Suburban Environmental Communities, was kind of the precursor to our organization. And that was a group where environmental commissioners met every few months and discussed commonalities and things that they were all working on, similar to what we do. the Highland Park Sustainability Advisory Group is interested in restarting that group. And if your community has a sustainability commission, a natural resources commission, an environmental commission, or the equivalent, if you are interested in getting involved in that, please send me a message through you can just use the Go Green Illinois website so that I can connect everybody. And that meeting hopefully can happen so we can work better together at the municipal level as well. So this program is primarily to talk about what laws are in the works, how our groups can help get them passed, what is in process but isn't yet in the pipeline, what are witness slips, how to fill them out, how to get involved at the local level and at the state level in ordinances and laws. As we know, environmental destruction is going to be the game plan at the national level for the next 4 years. So it's really very important for us to work locally. So we're going to start with Liz Kunkle and Chelsea Biggs from Illinois Environmental Council. They're going to give an overview of state legislation. And then we're going to move on from them to Ben Isabel, who is the Chief of Staff for Senator Laura Fine, who's going to tell us specifically about a couple of different bills. And then to Anthony Tindall from Cook County. He's the solid waste coordinator, and he's got some legislation that he's been working on composting and recycling at large events that he will talk about. And then after that, we'll go to local ordinances, but I will pop back in to introduce those.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting us to come and talk today. My name is Chelsea Biggs. I'm the Chief of Staff at the Illinois Environmental Council, and I'm here today with Liz Kunkle, our Zero Waste Policy Manager. So, you know, as it has been mentioned, now more than ever is the time to really focus on what's happening at the state and local level. We're happy to be here today in Illinois, where we've had tremendous progress and continue to see opportunities for progress in our state. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. And if you have questions on follow-up, feel free to contact us here. So for those of you that aren't familiar with IEC, really quickly, we've been around since 1975, but we've grown substantially in the last 10 years from 2 staff members to 25 staff members. Our footprint across the state has grown substantially as well. We represent more than 130 environmental organizations and more than 500 individual members. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. But essentially, our goal is to ensure healthy environments across the state through collaboration, power building, and advocacy. We focus on 6 issue areas when it comes to the environment. We look at sustainable agriculture, conservation, clean energy, equitable transportation, clean water, and zero waste. Many of these things intersect in different ways, but at IEC, we have staff that specialize in all 6 of these issue areas and work to build coalition with folks doing work on the ground like you all are, so that we can hear where the issues are and help inform the work that we do at the state level. So our approach, we do coalition building, as I just mentioned. The sort of secret sauce to our work is doing legislator education, ensuring that we connect legislators to what's going on in their backyard. We believe and know and have seen that connects them with the work, so that when a bill comes across their desk, they're more likely to buy in and understand the severity of issues as they come up. And policy advocacy. So our bread and butter is writing bills, lobbying those bills, and passing those bills. So our affiliates really drive our work. It's not just me and Liz sitting in an office deciding what it is that we should do next. We consult our affiliates who help inform our policy priorities each year. As I mentioned, there's more than 130 affiliates. They vary in geographic scope, in size, and in issue area. As long as you're an organization doing work within the state, focused on the environment, we welcome you to be a part of our work. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, if you have any staff at all. So, you know, would love to connect with folks who haven't been involved with IEC as an affiliate before to find out ways for you to get involved. What does it mean to be an affiliate? we connect all of our affiliates with our staff who act as and are policy experts to support those members as things come up statewide. So you always have a person to go to with questions, and then we connect with you to engage at least on a quarterly basis and understand what issues you're facing in your communities. We do movement building. So as I mentioned, advocacy, lobbying, coalition building, legislative tracking. As you'll see, there's quite a lot of bills each year put forth in the Illinois General Assembly. We track all of them. We're responsible for many of them, but not all of them. We do track them. And we share out those updates with our affiliate members, especially during session. So for those of you that know, today is the first day of veto session. Our Springfield team is active in Springfield. We provide regular updates through our listservs and through regular phone calls with our membership. We also have office space available. So for our affiliates, whenever they're in Springfield or here in Chicago, if you need a place to drop in, drop a bag, use Wi-Fi, have snacks, we welcome our affiliates. We do communication support. And what I think is, this last pillar here, what I think is the most important part of our affiliate membership is setting our policy agenda. So each year in the summer through the fall, we host meetings with our affiliates to help drive home what our priorities should be in all 6 of those issue areas. So it's a lot of meetings, but we use that as a way to shape and form what bills we'll draft, what bills we'll continue supporting if they've already been introduced. But it's a way for folks to get involved at the state level. I don't know if I need to say this to all of you. It feels like just the fact that you're here today, the importance of working within government, but wanted to highlight a couple reasons about why building relationships with elected officials is important at local levels. The awareness piece, making sure that they understand the work that you're doing, your mission, so that they can connect it back to their work. Most elected officials have really strong networks and can help plug you into things happening within the community. Credibility, so building trust within your organization by attending events or supporting your organization and that sort of thing. Many elected officials on the local level and even the state level are problem solvers, that they wanted to get their hands dirty and support and connect back with their communities. So it's a great way to do that. They provide access and in some cases funding. But I'm going to transition over to talk about some of our wins from last legislative session, which is continuing this week in veto. And then I'll turn it over to Liz to talk about our priorities going into next session. So to give high-level overview of last session, it was an election year, as we all know, and typically during election years, there's a chilling effect on legislation, so less things are introduced, and things don't move quite as quickly as they do in other years. And we definitely saw that. Despite it being an election year, there were still 420 environmental bills introduced in the General Assembly, and we drafted around 40 of those bills to push forward. Our budget last year was passed. It was delayed a bit over concerns about spending. We increased the budget at 1.6%. So as a state, our budget is $53 billion. I see chat happening, and I will look at that as soon as we're done with this, and I'm excited to answer questions. But just really quickly want to highlight some of our legislative wins. There was a climate education bill that passed. So starting in the school year 2026 to 2027, all public schools will be mandated to teach on climate change. Homeowners Native Landscape Act, so it prevents HOAs from restricting residents' abilities to plant native plants, which is a huge win. The Bikeway Planning Act, so this allows municipalities or counties to prepare a bike transportation report to identify the number of commuters, put together a map of land use developments for bikeways and that sort of thing. Small Plastic Bottles Act, so this will restrict hotels from providing mini toiletry bottles. So that is another exciting win. The large event recycling bill, we're seeing some movement on maybe some tweaks this year, but it requires facilities at a capacity of 3,500 or more people to participate in recycling and composting. I know I'm just like blasting through these. So I will turn it over to Liz to talk about our priorities for this year. There you
Thanks.
go.
Thanks, Chelsea.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. As Chelsea said, I'm Liz. I'm wearing both my Zero Waste Policy Manager IEC hat, but many of you also know me as the head of Go Green Winnetka, and I participate in this Go Green Illinois group, happily wearing that hat as well. But I'm super excited to be able to add on the policy piece. And again, the state level cap to all the amazing grassroots work that we're doing. And I love that IEC is like connecting the dots. That's what I love. It brings it from that state level to all of us doing the work at the grassroots level, which is why I do it all too. So building on what Chelsea said, and I know Anthony Tindall is going to speak a little more in depth on that large event recycling and composting bill. And Isabel, Senator Fine's chief of staff, is going to talk more in depth about the polystyrene ban as a bill. But what I want to mention really quick on that bill, this HB 2376, the polystyrene ban, is that this plastic coalition that SEMA and Jack and myself, IEC, is also a supporting member of, this coalition for plastic reduction. It's involved in a specific campaign to help move the polystyrene ban and help pass it. Probably not these couple weeks during veto session, but hopefully during the lame duck session that will happen in early January before the next full session starts in the middle of January. So if you're interested at all in helping to pass a bill that would ban polystyrene foam foodware, takeout containers, cups, everything made of single-use polystyrene, it would ban all retailers, including restaurants, from providing those single-use items. Builds on bills that have previously been passed that ban use of those items in natural areas and state parks 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, I guess. And then earlier this year, those items were banned throughout all state agencies. So our position and messaging is that this is the logical next step. It's just building on what's happened already. And there's a really great opportunity to help pass it. So again, if you're interested in helping on the campaign, maybe signing postcards, connecting to show your legislator, again, building on what Chelsea said earlier and why we're here, connecting those dots for your legislator and why these issues are important for you, put it in the chat and we'll connect you with the Coalition for Plastic Reduction members who are working in these different areas on that bill specifically. And then more into the full 2025 session, we're looking at a microfiber filtration bill. This is a really interesting bill, also of great interest to the Coalition for Plastic Reduction. This would require filters be placed on washing machines, very similar to the filters that are already in place for all dryers, to like lint filters. These filters on washing machines would collect microfibers and microplastics from synthetic fibers and keep them from entering our waterways. And it's really the perfect time to do that. So this bill was introduced in 2024, and we know it'll be reintroduced in 2025 and expected to be a priority for the legislators as well as IEC. And then another priority for IEC next year is looking increasingly at banning PFAS from certain products. Specifically products that have prolonged exposure to human skin, where there's the greatest likelihood of risk of chemicals leaching out and obviously causing damage with humans. So things like food containers, baby toys, baby formula, all of the cosmetics, all of those items, cookware that increase the risk of again transferring those chemicals to human and causing damage. Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Sorry. I've got 3 bullet points here, but this is really 2 bills. These are 2 new bills, and that's why there's no numbers there. There's just X's. They haven't been introduced yet. The numbers will be assigned when they get introduced in January, but we know that these are 2 bills that Senator Adrian Johnson in Lake County expects to introduce. They're kind of companion bills. They'll be partner bills introduced together. I'll start with the second one, the food scrap diversion bill. It will not only require food scraps to be diverted from landfill, it specifically will require that diversion to happen according to the hierarchy of preferred, avoiding food waste in the first place, preventing food loss and waste, and then donating food to humans, ensuring it's available to feed humans, feed animals, and then lower down available for composting or anaerobic digestion before it goes to the landfill. But still, that diversion has to happen in that order of priorities, which I think is a really interesting approach to this bill. The other interesting approach is that it is very, very, very tiered. It starts with the largest producers, largest generators, more than 100 tons in 2028, and scales all the way down to individual producers like ourselves, residents, in 2034. And all of that diversion will have to happen as long as you hit one of those volumes, 100 tons, or again, scaled down to whenever it captures the volume of your generation. As long as there is a compost facility that already accepts food scrap within a 20-mile radius of your location, you'll be required to divert your food scrap according to that hierarchy. So it's an exciting bill. And then the companion bill that will go with it is compost market development, which would incentivize the use of finished compost and increase market development and infrastructure, all of which is necessary before we're drastically increasing the volume of organics that we're requiring to be diverted. So it's a really smart way to look at these bills and recognize that other work has to happen in parallel for a diversion bill to be successful. So these are both priorities for Senator Adrian Johnson. They're being worked on with Walter Willis, who some of you know from the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County. And so we've heard summaries of those bills, but we haven't seen the specific text of them. So, but they're exciting and we're waiting to hear more and looking forward to the specifics we'll see in them. Okay, next slide. And then some other related issues, similar again to relating to composting and food production. The Good Food Purchasing Policy would require state government to incentivize the purchase of locally sourced, ethically raised, and worker-supported food, basically supporting our local food economies. And that again dovetails with some of the other diversion and food waste protection work that IEC is doing and is happening in the state. On a different subject matter, IEC also does work on the transportation side, obviously, as was mentioned. And so IEC is also supporting legislation that would require Illinois to adopt ACC2 standards, which would require all new passenger vehicles to be zero emission by 2035, comparable to some other states. Thank you. And then other priorities in some of the other areas, I'll start with the one on the bottom, improving local food infrastructure. Again, that kind of dovetails with the Good Food Purchasing Policy and supporting local infrastructure for food, supporting our local farmers. So this bill specifically would work to incentivize that infrastructure. And then the flip side would be being able to purchase food locally and not having to import as much as we do from out of state. And then two conservation related bills. The wetlands bill, some of you may have heard about this year. It was a big priority for IEC this year. The Sackett decision back in 2023 was a US Supreme Court decision that effectively gutted wetlands protections federally. And so many states, including Illinois, are looking to fill the gap left by that the lapse of that federal protection. And so that's what these bills do, would be protecting Illinois wetlands at the state level. And then a comparable bill protecting right to recreate on Illinois rivers, making sure our waterways are accessible and safe to use and enjoy. And then one big one we want to mention, and I'll shift it back to Chelsea because this is, again, kind of bird's eye view, but what I want to mention is I love this bill, the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act, because it connects and builds off the foundation that was laid back in 2016 by the initial passage of the Future Energy Jobs Act, which a lot of us in Go Green Illinois will remember was a very positive act that happened back in November of 2016. And so I love that it's coming back around this year and building on that good work that's been happening in all those interim years, and shifting it more from renewable energies that CEJA and FEJA have been about, and adding on to that into the transportation sphere, because we know that's so important here as well. So I'll flip it back to Chelsea to do some high level and conclusion stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. So really quick on this, this is one of our biggest priorities going into next year. So definitely something you'll hear more and more about. We're looking at bringing together the local transit governance and funding reforms for all of the regional transportation hubs, which would include PACE, CTA, and local transportation ways. And so there's quite a lot that goes into this, but I'm happy to answer questions if folks have some. I know we're getting close on time. I'm gonna open up the chat box here because I saw some things coming through. Do we want to do questions now, Beth or Kim, or what makes the most sense?
And I can reply if we need to move on.
Yeah.
Sure, we've got about 3 minutes, so if you want to go ahead with questions now, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Although some questions might be answered by the next speakers.
It's, yeah.
Thank you, Karen Glennemeyer. I will follow up with you.
Yeah, I did not see any specific questions in that chat. There are people who want to be involved and you should look at
Great.
that. You can respond
Awesome.
directly.
Amazing.
Fantastic. I'll scroll through. If there's no questions to answer immediately, I'll go ahead and scroll through. I'll stick around. Chelsea might need to take off, but I can keep around and reply to any questions or respond to any comments or interest in the issues I mentioned.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank
someone
you.
wants to know whether they could have access to your slide deck.
Yeah, we can share that. Do you want us to share that with you, Beth, to share with the group?
Yes, of
share it-
course.
share it
We
with
we will
me.
record this entire program as well, so people
Okay.
can always look at it through the program. But Kim,
Yeah, we used to post the slide decks, but I think now that we have the recording, I think that would probably be a better way to do it because otherwise you're sharing slides without the accompanying information.
yeah,
Now there are actually a couple of questions. But let's keep going and we'll come back to questions if they don't get answered with the next speakers. So thank you, Chelsea and Liz.
Yes, of course.
Thank you all for having
Thank you.
us.
So Ben, Beth, if you want to highlight Ben. Ben Isabel's Chief of Staff for Senator Laura Fine, who is a state senator representing.
but there's Ben. Okay, here we go. All right, we're going to spotlight Ben for everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, hi everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you all for joining today. As they noted, my name is Ben Isabel. I'm the Chief of Staff for State Senator Laura Fine, as well as her legislative director and help direct all of her legislative initiatives. Senator Fine, for those of you who don't know her, she's the senator for the 9th District, which encompasses all or parts of Evanston, Wilmette, Winnetka, Glencoe. I'm sorry, not Glencoe, Glenview, parts of Morton Grove, parts of Skokie, and parts of Northbrook. So sort of the North Shore area. Senator Fine is a member of the Environment and Conservation Committee, as well as the chair of the Senate Green Caucus, which is really exciting. I first just want to say thanks to the Illinois Environmental Council for all the work they do. They're truly rock stars, and we couldn't get a lot of our environmental stuff across the finish line without their help. So I really appreciate all the work that they do. So yeah, I'm just here to talk a little bit about sort of our initiatives. The Environmental Council kind of touched on them a little bit, and I just want to go a little bit more in depth. Last year we were able to we're fortunate enough to get a bill across the finish line that I originated, which was the small hotel plastics bill, which is really exciting, to get rid of all of those little shampoo bottles that you see in hotels. So that will be implemented over the next 2 years, and so it starts implementation in January of next year. So that'll be really exciting to see how that rolls out and how that keeps a whole bunch of plastic out of our environment and our landfills. And what we're working on for next year, for lame duck and for next year, includes the polystyrene ban and the PFAS ban. The polystyrene ban, like Liz mentioned, that we're hoping to get it across the finish line in lame duck session, which is in early January. We did pass a bill a couple years ago that gets rid of all polystyrene, styrofoam products at state agencies, but that also includes our state universities. It includes state parks, and it includes a whole host of vendors that operate at our state fairs and things like that. So that started rolling out in January 1st of 2025 and fully rolled out by the end of 2026. So now we're taking that next step, and we want to ban styrofoam from all restaurants, all points of sale for any type of styrofoam food containers. We are in the middle of negotiating that at the moment. And we appreciate everyone's support and everyone commenting and everyone reaching out to their legislators to let them know how important it is. Something to sort of touch on, the IEC touched on it a bit, and I just wanted to expand on is how, so the IEC is a really good vessel for contacting your, and Go Green, your Go Green networks are very amazing vessels for reaching out about supporting laws or things like that that are being, or ordinances that are being proposed. But I think what we're really fortunate of, especially in the North Shore area, is that we have a lot of communities already testing out and already moving forward with some policies. So like we have like Northbrook and Evanston, for instance, that have either put a fee on plastic bags or Evanston's banned plastic bags. I know that's something that the IEC is working on as well. Hopefully in the future that we can do that as a state, but how that really helps when our local units of government push this forward, it helps for a couple of reasons. First, it helps that a lot of things that you hear in Springfield is what I call like the boogeyman opposition. And by that, I mean, people come, the opposition will say, oh, if this passes, the sky's going to fall and everything's going to be, way more, the alternatives are going to be way more expensive, or people aren't going to, adjust to like not having plastic bags or using paper or using some sort of alternative product. And what's really helpful is that when we have the local units of government that have already done this in one way or another, it's an easy way to combat that boogeyman opposition defense. So you have units of local government that showed, hey, we did this, the sky didn't fall, prices didn't go up, or we were able to implement it in an equitable way. And so that really helps to pass a law on a larger scale in Springfield. Another reason it helps, and it's a little bit of a selfish reason, is that when a local unit of government does something, we're able, they usually will work out the implementation issues that come up, or the bumps in the road that comes up when ordinances are implemented, so that we're able to prevent those, hopefully from happening on the state level when we do that. Sorry, so to get back to the laws that we're looking at next year, or the bills that we're looking at, besides the polystyrene bill, which we hope to get done in lame duck, fingers crossed, they did mention that we're also pursuing a ban on PFAS. PFAS has been something that we've sort of been taking little bites at along the way for the past couple of years. And it's a problem that's not getting any less severe. So it's definitely something. We did have a bill this past year that sort of did PFAS for a whole host of products, but something I think that we're looking at for this next session is really just to hone in on PFAS that deal with a class of products known as juvenile products, which is more just colloquial things that babies or children come across. Like I have a little girl who will be 1 years old on Thursday, and something we definitely notice, obviously with babies and children, they love putting toys and they love putting things in their mouth. So it's like, if you have something that's been coated in PFAS and a baby's putting it in their mouth, like over, the process of the use of that toy or something that, degrades. And so we don't want that anywhere near our children. So I think we're really honing in on juvenile products, or things that children or babies come into contact with, to make sure that, we're not putting them in clothes or giving them toys or things like diapers or like nursery pads or anything like that. Nothing that comes into their contact with their skin has PFAS in it. And so we're really hopeful on that. And yeah, that's all I had. And thank you for all that you guys do as a volunteer network, and for supporting all these important pieces of legislation. Even when we hear stuff, we get a lot of emails from our constituents who are really environmentally focused. And even though it's bills that we already 99% of the time already support. It's really great to hear, you know, because that just makes Senator Fine's job so much easier in Springfield to say like, hey, this, you know, I'm introducing this bill. This is really important to my constituents. So even if you know that we support environmental stuff already, it's always really great to hear from constituents and for people who support the law. So thank you to Green Glen Illinois for having me and for all the work you do in this space.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for taking the time to be here and give us that information. One quick question from the chat. Is the state fair subject to the single-use plastic restrictions?
On the polystyrene bill, it should be. I will double check on that. I might have to get the IEC's expertise on that one. But from my understanding, it was. But I will absolutely double check.
Okay, Kim, thank you, Ben. Before you introduce our next speaker, Anthony Tindall, I just want to mention that Laura Fine was the first one of our elected officials to propose a ban or restriction for gas-powered leaf blowers. So while that did not pass statewide, a lot of our communities are really leading the way, which will make it easier for statewide legislation down the road. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely, and just because we're not, we don't have plans to reintroduce it next year, but not to say that we won't in the future.
And she also was instrumental in getting many of our communities to pass coal tar sealant bans, which also didn't pass at the state level, but we do have in place here in Highland Park, and I believe Winnetka and maybe Bannockburn and Barrington. So there are several communities that have those bans as well. So thank you for all that good work. Okay, Anthony. Anthony Tindall works for Cook County and is in charge of solid waste or trying to reduce solid waste, and would like to talk to us about composting and recycling at large events.
Hi, Kim. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to share my screen. I hope you're all able to see. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, but it's
We need the slideshow view.
yeah.
I don't know how to work this, so I guess if you can just put up with me with this. So hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Tindall, the Solid Waste Coordinator for Cook County. Before I get into the heart about the large event bill that I want to talk about, I just want to give you some quick context. There's a lot going on in Cook County that my office is trying to work to address. So, you know, we have 5.1 million residents in Cook County, representing 2.1 million households who live in 134 different municipalities within Cook County. I'm really appreciative of Go Green and all other environmental organizations that are represented in this call. You all are helping us identify the problems that we have and helping us come up with solutions to address a lot of our environmental issues, one of which is solid waste. Cook County, we have a 13% recycling rate and an 18% waste diversion rate. So there's lots of room for improvement. Before I get into the heart of the bill, I just want to give some context about what my office does. The Cook County Department of Environment, our solid waste division, we inspect, permit, and regulate the solid waste industry. So there's literally over 200 recycling permitted locations, facilities that we regulate, from closed landfills, transfer stations, MRFs, compost facilities, CCDD sites, all sorts of sites that we regulate, including the 9 waste haulers that operate in Cook County. We also do provide leadership and support to help divert waste from our regional landfills. Municipal governments are those entities that actually provide waste services to their residents. We don't do that here in Cook County. Cook County is also special where we have 2 solid waste agencies. One of you, most of you all will know of SWANK, the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County. We also have West Cook County Solid Waste Agency that provides technical, programmatic, and operational assistance to their member municipalities for waste, recycling, and composting related initiatives. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about what Cook County is preparing for in terms of the large event recycling and composting bill, SB 2876. that Liz and others on this call were instrumental in helping push through. So this requires event facilities with a capacity of at least 3,500 people to provide recycling and composting services January of next year. It only applies to permanent structures such as convention centers and sports stadiums where large crowds gather for events that produce significant amounts of waste. There's a whole bunch of other components to that I won't get into for this particular call, but just wanted to give an update in terms of where we're at regionally in terms of implementing this bill, preparing to implement this bill. So a lot of our partners have come together, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, the Illinois Recycling Foundation, the City of Chicago, and a whole bunch of other local environmental groups have come together to help us have conversations about how do we roll out this law locally. So we've been busy trying to identify right now who needs to comply with this law. So right now we have 36 venues that are definitely that have been identified that definitely need to comply with this law. We're still mulling over an additional 17 that might need to comply with the law. So our lawyers are looking at that right now. Then after that, we are trying to confirm those compost and recycling facilities that will be able to accept the new materials that are going to be coming in when this law comes into effect. Right now, suburban Cook County, we have 4 compost facilities. The City of Chicago also has the Green Era campus, the only permitted food waste anaerobic digester that we have in the region. We also have 160 different recycling facilities that are able to accept materials. So we're trying to identify those facilities in this region that will be able to accept new materials. Finally, last week, we were really excited to host a large event, recycling composting listening session with the event venues, along with some other key stakeholders, to hear from them in terms of their plans to comply with the law, their concerns, their suggestions of how we can coordinate, communicate effectively to roll out this large event bill. So in the coming weeks and the coming month, we are working to develop some toolkits, some clear strategies in terms of how we are going to be regulating this law for these facilities, opportunities, how we can communicate better, providing partnership opportunities for some of our partners to develop grant programs to support the implementation of this law, and some other things that came up with that listening session. So that's where we're at right now. More to come in the coming weeks and the coming month. I did provide my contact information. So if you all have suggestions, ideas, or partners that you think need to be at the table when we're talking about this large event bill, my email is right here. My phone number is there. So I'm really excited that this law has come into effect, and we're working really hard to make sure that it's going to be successful. It's something that a lot of us have wanted to see, and we want to expand over time. So we're going to try to get it right as much as we can. So that's where we're at right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing that information. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so we're gonna go kind of speed dating style through local ordinances. And we've got people on a range of different things who are going to talk about some things you can do at the local level. A little bit of state mixed in, but primarily local. So Leslie Shad from Natural Habitat Evanston is first with bird-friendly buildings, tree ordinances, and Chicago bird collision monitors.
I will be very quick and just touch base on this. And if people want to talk to me, I hope they'll reach out.
Leslie, could I have
highlight-
a split second? I sent Kim a reminder too late. I just wanted for everyone who's in our audience, after Leslie, we'll be talking about dark sky lighting, weed ordinances that impact native plantings, solar energy ordinances, business recycling, sidewalks, and leaf blowers. So those are a lot of issues that are really relevant to all of our groups. So we're hoping that you'll be able to stay for all of those presentations. Kim and I are trying to shorten these meetings to 90 minutes from 2 hours. So we're hoping that we'll have a time for community reports at the very end. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Leslie.
Not at all, not at all. And I would love to connect with somebody. We're working on Lights Out Evanston, and so talking about dark skies is super helpful. All of these issues are so on topic here. I do want to do a plug for bird collision monitors really quickly. Chicago Bird Collision Monitors. Annette Prince is just an absolute hero on this. Not only do bird collision monitors work at Chicago and in Evanston at Northwestern, going around the buildings to try to collect injured birds. Injured birds go to rehab. Dead birds go to the Field Museum, but they do incredible rescue work throughout the whole area. Just in the last day or so, there have been diverse birds around Chicago and the North Shore, an owl in Oswego, a blue heron in Glen Ellyn. I mean, it's just amazing, and there just are updates nonstop about things that they're working on. So I just got to do a plug for that if anyone is interested in birds. Tree ordinance. In Evanston, we do have a tree ordinance. It's newly enacted as of, well, it was enacted a while ago, but it took effect in June. And essentially, any construction or activities that could damage a tree within 20 feet of a public or private tree require a permit. Most tree permits cost $80. I believe there are waivers for income. Basically, it applies to any well, it applies to public trees 2 inches and above. That was already in effect, protecting public trees. For private trees, 6 inches and above, and it requires replacement depending upon the species of the tree. So, for example, the most valuable trees could be replaced at 150%. So if you take down a big tree, you might have to replace 150% of that tree you took down, basically, a size of that tree. But then excuse me, if you take down buckthorn or something like that, it's encouraged that you replace it with a valuable tree, but that is not required if you're allowed, of course, to take down invasives and things. In addition, obviously, there's a fee in lieu of trees. So if somebody is taking down a big tree, you can pay part and perhaps plant part. So there's a calculation for that. I'll just move on, though, to bird-friendly ordinance. There's also a bird-friendly ordinance, and this, I really encourage you all to look at our bird-friendly ordinance. The tree ordinance, I would say, is newly in effect, and we have to see how the kinks get worked out on that. Bird-friendly ordinance also is newly in effect, but it is really top-notch in terms of protecting new buildings being built in Evanston. It applies to everything more or less, but single-family homes, anything being newly built, and it applies if there's replacement of 100% of the glass. You can comply with it by, there's a LEED pilot credit for bird collisions that's actually being updated as we speak, but you could use the LEED compliance to, instead of the Evanston ordinance. But essentially, high-risk features require levels of protection. It's too complicated to get into right now, but there's a American Bird Conservancy has rated materials by threat factor to birds, and that's what is used to determine the safetiness of the different materials that are used. So high-risk features like glass railings, walkways require a 30 level threat factor. The first 60 feet are the next most dangerous, and areas above green roofs are next most dangerous. And those also have a lower threat factor, like you need a lower threat in the bottom of the building. And then the remainder of the building also has a threat requirement that you not exceed for the materials that you're applying to the building. There's also lighting requirements that there be lights out at 11 p.m. and during migration. that there'd be no upward facing beams. And there are exterior features like the distance of pools from the building and ventilation grates. So I can talk to anyone about this if you're interested, but that's my 2-minute speed dating thing.
Okay, thank you so much. And these, again, this is what we can do at the local level. So you can contact your members of your city council or your village board about putting in place things, similar sorts of measures. Adam Kreuzer is going to talk about dark skies. We tried to do these in an order that was related. So dark skies are also good for birds.
Yes, it is. Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Kreuzer, and just to follow up with the prior presenter, Leslie, we have worked with Chicago bird collision monitors in the past, and you can find a Zoom seminar that I did with Annette Prince on YouTube. If you just look for my name, Adam Kreuzer, Kreuzer, you'll find that. We just had some, well, not us directly, but all of us just had some good news with respect to McCormick Place. I don't know if anybody's heard about that, with the installation of markers on windows to hopefully prevent bird collisions. And also, from what I understand, McCormick Place has agreed to reduce its lighting at night, especially during migration season. So a lot of these issues certainly involve our nocturnal environment. We are basically all about our nocturnal environment. You don't hear much about our nocturnal environment, but it is part of our heritage. It is part of every day. And we're doing our best to address what is artificial light at night with the introduction of LEDs, which of course are so much more intense, so much more bright, so much more white. Recently at the state level, Governor Pritzker just passed a statute, which in my opinion is one of the first truly modern light pollution statutes in the country. That statute is titled Illinois Outdoor Lighting Control Act. It governs just properties owned, managed by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, but it is a huge step forward. Thank you to Senator Laura Ellman and her staff, and also Representative Tara Costa Howard, both of whom I got to know through work in Glen Ellyn as the chair of the Glen Ellyn Environmental Commission in my distant past. Basically, it addresses fully shielding of light fixtures so that that light is directed down where we need it on the ground as compared to out, with glare, which reduces security, and of course up into the sky, which has many effects, including our inability to see the heritage night, our stars, etc. The choice of color with our bulbs. That statute requires that bulbs be not more than 2700 Kelvin and below, which is a more amber color. It reduces the intense blue-white light that were introduced now with the introduction of LEDs. And of course, reducing lumens, which is the brightness. We used to know more about watts, but now we take into consideration lumens. We want less lumens, which is less brightness, less reflection off surfaces, etc. Moving on to ordinances. If you want to look to see what some of our local governments have done, you can go to a website known as Design Lights Consortium, and it will show some municipalities in the area that do have some level of light pollution ordinances. Not all of them are necessarily very good. Some of them are somewhat dated, but that source is available to you. Otherwise, what we now have on the International Dark Sky Association website, now known as Dark Sky International, is a very new and exciting opportunity. You can go to www.darksky.org and look at the section called Creating Codes and Statutes. And we now have guidelines. We have actual templates for ordinances that any one of you in any community can use as a guide with your municipality. Should you choose to confront your municipality about basically what they're doing and not doing. So that's very much exciting. Basically what we want with our ordinances is we want to address when do we turn those lights off, whether at curfew or whatever the case may be. for not turning them off? How are we dimming them? There are now programs that are available to allow that light to be dimmed, the brightness levels, the lumen levels to be dimmed. Also, again, most important is the shielding. What kind of fixtures are we using? Are they dark sky friendly? Let's keep that light focused down. Also, again, the choice of color, moving with the more amber colors as compared to the bright white color that LEDs have introduced to us. And also lumens, again, reducing brightness, trying to convince our municipalities, our residents to keep that brightness level down, hopefully not more than 1,000 lumens, with the idea that ultimately we're reducing trespass so that we have certain measures at the property line that basically limit foot candles at the property line. We want foot candles to be not more than what we would see with a full moon. So
Thank you so much.
those are the opportunities. Thank you.
Great. And if you can put some of those links in the chat, that would be awesome so people can access them there. I just want to give a quick example. Here in Highland Park, Fort Sheridan has a section that's forest preserve property and a section that's military property. And it's a fairly dark area. It's one of the darkest areas along the lake. From Chicago, it's probably the first dark skies-ish area. And so I went there, as did a lot of other people, to try and see the northern lights. But the lights from the military section are not shielded. And that section is housing. So all they need is to be shielded. So I will probably start working on trying to get them to do that. But we have an area along the lakefront, which is really prime property for being dark. Okay, we are going to move on to Beth Peluse from the Conservation Foundation, who's going to talk a little bit about weed ordinances.
Hello, everyone. I think you can see my screen. Yes?
Yep.
Great. So I am the Conservation at Home Program Manager with the Conservation Foundation. Our Conservation at Home program really is there to be a resource to individuals looking to take steps in their own yards, gardens, green spaces that they have to be more sustainable. So we work with individuals, but we also really work closely with quite a good number of local communities and municipalities who are looking to have more sustainable practices, both with their public spaces as well as with ordinances within their communities. So first, it seems like sometimes when you talk about what a weed is, it can be a little subjective. But when we're talking about it from a conservation standpoint, it's really focusing on those invasive species that are harmful to our local environments. These weed ordinances are based off of, or maybe different per municipality. So we really encourage people to look into what their municipality's weed ordinance language is, especially if you are getting maybe a knock on the door or a fine for a weed problem. If there's not specific language there, we really encourage you to have or at least encourage your local municipality to adopt specific language, because the more details that are in a ordinance, the better. Because though we are here to support nature from the Conservation Foundation ourselves, we are not for people just letting their suburban lawns going and literally going wild. Turf grass is not native, and if you just let it grow, there's really nothing there for pollinators or other local wildlife to have as a resource, other than maybe if you're wanting to attract little mice or chipmunks to your yard for habitat. But the other thing is that with the other invasive species like Canadian thistle or bindweed, it's choking out our native plants and not really providing anything back to the local wildlife. So we encourage municipalities to have weed ordinances, but to have as detailed language as possible. So an example with Villa Park, we worked with them now many years ago, but they were looking to update their weed ordinance, and we suggested that they use the state of Illinois invasive species list as a guideline. So that's something that you could be following up with your own municipality to provide specific plant lists that are considered weeds, so that when you do have a yard that you're looking to plant native plants and pollinator gardens and rain gardens that are beneficial to our local ecosystems, as well as, in my opinion, incredibly beautiful, that these are different than quote unquote weeds. Yes, they are taller, some of them. A lot of weed ordinances talk about something not over 8 inches tall, but should be the weeds themselves, and the grass, the turf grass itself shouldn't be over 8 inches. But these gardens are bringing so much to the local ecosystem, not only for pollinators, local wildlife. It's actually helping with rainwater issues, which is actually why a lot of the municipalities that we've been partnering with are starting to fully embrace having people create these native plant gardens. But other municipalities just aren't there yet, and maybe need a little bit more education on what the benefit is even to the greater community. Again, with the rainwater issues, these things will soak up the rain because they have super long root systems, when again, turf grass, not great, only has a couple inches of roots, which is why things puddle in people's yards and it just gets pushed down the concrete into our stormwater systems. So this was touched on by Chelsea earlier. An exciting new law has been passed. Specifically, it's talking about HOAs and associations, but it says that HOAs cannot prohibit their residents from having a native plant or a native garden in their front yard or even backyard. And it needs to be maintained, so it can't just be going wild, but it should also be predominantly free of weeds, which again, we don't want those invasive species in there, but also not, of course, reaching over into your neighbor's yard or into public spaces. So this is, very common sense. You're not necessarily creeping out into other people's property, but you are able to create these spaces in a way that is pleasing to yourself too, because I do feel HOAs and maybe, oh, do we have a question or?
No.
Okay.
No.
That a lot of times previously, when we didn't have, again, the specific language, that HOAs and municipalities are going off of kind of more subjectivity of whoever has come to your yard to see what is in your yard. They may not understand what native plants are or what they look like. So even if you're having an issue maybe with the municipality you live in, we suggest even bringing up this new law, though it is related to HOAs, because it is at least providing information and providing a kind of a line in the sand of that these should be allowed and that they're beneficial for our neighborhoods. And then lastly, again, to talk about our conservation at home program, we serve DuPage, Will, Kane, and Kendall counties. And what we do is provide free yard consultations and certify yards that are following a certain criteria of conservation and sustainable gardening practices. And we have found, not every time, but when people start to have issues with weed ordinances, when they're truly doing native plant gardening and not just letting things go and having a ton of invasive species, that it at least is a third-party evaluation and helps to further educate whoever is kind of in charge of these weed ordinances, so that we can at least open the door to have these conversations a little further. So I do have my contact information there at the bottom in case you do want to reach out and connect. If you aren't part of DuPage, Will, Kane, and Kendall counties, we do have other partners that provide this service and this certification program. So feel free to email me too if you would like to connect with those programs too.
Thank you very much. Next is Amy Hanna Downey, talking about some solar, some obstacles to solar specifically. And I just want to make sure everybody knows, on our website and on our YouTube page, we have old or not so old videos from other meetings that we've held, including Dark Skies meeting. We've got a solar meeting. We've got meetings on native landscaping. So feel free to check those out and get more information that way. Thanks, Amy, for being here.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Beth. Yes, it's nice to see everybody. I'm just going to share, I'm in the solar industry and we work, I'm in charge of the permitting department and design and engineering. So we work with AHJs, we call them AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction all the time. We have a record of like 200, actually 300 municipalities in our records. Okay, so I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to talk about 3 municipalities. I'm not used to this, so please let me know if I can, if you're seeing this. Okay.
Yep.
I need to press play.
We're seeing like a warning on your
Yeah.
screen and
Okay, how's that?
yep.
Okay. All right. So so the first one is Killdeer. So Killdeer had a ban for solar. And as you might know, HOAs no longer can ban solar. They have certain requirements, but municipalities can. And so the Killdeer had so much success with this. In December of 2023, they finished their longstanding prohibition on rooftop solar, and they and in Illinois they passed an ordinance allowing solar on residential roofs. Therefore, now homeowners can go solar. They can get the Illinois incentives, the federal solar incentives, and save on their electricity costs. So that was really, really exciting. I work with Sun, and we were tracking this tightly, and we actually were the first install in the municipality, which is really exciting. And what they did to lift the ban, they came up with requirements that they thought would still produce the aesthetics that they wanted. So I'm not going to go over these, but these are 4 of their requirements that when you install solar, you have to abide by these, and it just helps with the aesthetics. It goes a little bit over and beyond, but it's at least, again, people can install if they follow these directions. So that's really exciting. The second AHJ is Sugar Grove. So Sugar Grove also just had a very recent success story. They used to require that any solar installer have a NABCEP PV installation professional certification, which is great to have, but most solar companies don't have the PVIP. They may have some sort of NABCEP certificate, but there's multiple NABCEP certificates. Not to mention that solar companies have electrical supervising electricians that have all of their requirements. And so Sugar Grove was really going above and beyond what is necessary for a solar installer to have. And you can see the last sentence of this PVIP notation. It says, it is not intended to prevent qualified individuals from servicing or installing PV systems or to replace state license requirements. And so the building department for Sugar Grove basically took it upon themselves to approach their own village board and state that the ICs that there are other requirements that solar companies can have that are just as good, and that the PVIP certificate is not necessary, and they won. So their own building department took this to the village board and got it approved that the PVIP is no longer needed. Because what was happening is it was stacking up the solar permits, and they couldn't get these permits off their desk because they couldn't approve them because of this one requirement. So that was a big success. They now accept that a different certification is okay, and we can all move forward. So that was really exciting. And then the third one is with LaGrange. Now LaGrange just came up with a stricter solar requirement. So this one is showing that no solar panels may be mounted facing or within a 60-degree angle of the front lot line. So you can see this was like a revision request from the municipality for one of our systems. You can see that they are rejecting the 4 modules on the south-facing roof. And the south-facing roof is the most productive for solar. And this particular roof face is not facing towards the street. So I tried to rebuttal this, and they didn't accept. Now we have 2 homeowners in this jurisdiction that have to do a $1,500 variance just to keep their solar at the system size that they want. So this is unfortunate, and we, you know, are hoping that the municipality really thinks twice about this requirement. So that's what I've got.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's always helpful to hear what is not working, so that we can try and remove some of those obstacles. And Soul Smart is a really good way to remove those obstacles, and that's a program that many of our communities have participated in and worth looking into if your community is not a Soul Smart community already. So we are going to Jacquelyn from Glen Ellyn to talk a little bit about some obstacles to business recycling.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacquelyn Casazza. I'm the president and co-founder of Green Glen Ellyn. I don't have any slides. You just get to look at my face for the next 2 minutes. So I'm also on the Environmental Commission. I've been a member of our Village Environmental Commission for about the last 5 years or so. And for the last couple of years, we've been trying to get recycling into our central business district, which is our downtown businesses. And the majority of our businesses downtown do not recycle, which I think most residents don't know, but a lot of them don't have the space, or they're not the owners of the building. So it's a contract that has to be entered into by the landlord, and a lot of the tenants don't necessarily have control. So we were working through the Environmental Commission, myself and another member, trying to get a central recycling location where businesses could come and drop off their cardboard, because cardboard is, most of them get a lot of it, and it's very easy to recycle because you just got to make sure it's dry and clean and flattened. So the first obstacle we ran into is trying to find a place in the village, like on village property, that we could have a compactor with a lock. But that was not, we were informed by the village there was really nowhere to put it. So the next step was to try to place it somewhere on private property. Could we find a business or retailer downtown that would be willing to host a bin that other businesses could come and drop off their cardboard, and then it would all be picked up there. So we talked to Groot, because they're our residential waste hauler here. They were willing to do a 1-year pilot for us for free to collect this from businesses and see how it would work. And when we got to the point where we were going to deploy the pilot, and we just needed to find the location, we found out that there's a specification in our village code that requires for some kind of screening around the dumpster, which is required to be constructed of the same material of the walls as the principal structure. Well, our downtown is historic, and a lot of buildings here are brick. So that would mean that a private business would have to build a brick enclosure to like screen the dumpster. And the rough estimate we got from our village liaison to do that would be $10,000, and we saw other estimates that were even higher than that. So, you know, unfortunately, the staff liaison, when he presented this to us, he said, you know, I understand this information can delay or even end up making this initiative unachievable due to the current village code restrictions. And in fact, it did. We have stopped pursuing this for now. This was 2 years ago, so we have yet to find a solution for these businesses. But many of our downtown business owners want to recycle, but they're busy running their businesses, and they don't have time or the expertise to kind of look into all this. And they also don't want to take on that added cost just to build a brick wall that's going to hide a dumpster. So we're going to try, you know, maybe we're going to look into and try again and see if we have village elections in April. So I don't know if things will change, but right now we're just kind of stuck, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Jacquelyn. Next, we've got Nagle talking a little about sidewalks.
Thank you, Kim. And Beth is going to share my screen. Shots.
Okay.
So thanks to all of you. My story begins with Avoca West School. I'm part of Bike Walk Wilmette, and we advocate for safe opportunities to walk and bike in our community. But Avoca West, with the next slide, is located in Glenview. It serves residents of Glenview, Wilmette, Northfield, and Winnetka. You can put the next slide on, Beth.
Yeah, I'm failing to get it in slideshow view, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
But go ahead.
Go ahead, just, okay. So And it is located in the east side of Glenview in a neighborhood, a subdivision with 350 homes, serving right now about 90 students that go to Avoca West. And in this subdivision, there are no sidewalks. And the subdivision was built in the 50s. And at that time, a lot of contractors were able to get waivers to exclude sidewalks in their build. If you go to the third slide, Beth, please. I'm sorry, guys. This is Sherwood Avenue. It's part of this area and it's right adjacent to Avoca West School. It sees 1,900 vehicles travel on it per day, most of them related to school. And if you see the mom and her children walking towards that sidewalk, that is Beach Avenue, and Sherwood and Beach are the only access for people walking, biking, cars, and school buses to get into the school grounds, which you'll see on the next slide. So Sherwood Avenue goes north and south, but this is how a school bus must access the school. You turn onto Beach and into the school grounds you arrive. So our story began in 2019, just the next slide, and just a little bit of talking points to this, was Sherwood Avenue was going to be reconstructed. And as you might know, this is the most opportune time to look at infrastructure and say, how could we do it better? So the residents on Sherwood and other advocates like myself went to the village and said, can we think about putting sidewalks into this reconstruction? Well, at the time, Glenview had a sidewalk policy that says that residents on the street to be reconstructed have an opportunity to vote. Yes, I would like sidewalks. No, I would not like sidewalks. And that vote decides if they will be built in during this reconstruction. So we pulled out all the stops and went to the village and said, we went and got a Safe Routes to School grant, and we now have a walking map, which includes Sherwood. We did a walk audit, invited trustees, policemen, school staff, kids, and said, let's walk this at school dismissal and see what it's like to jockey around cars. Glenview didn't have a complete streets policy, but they said that they held and reviewed any infrastructure changes to the framework of complete streets. So we said, can we hold you to that? But in the end, 13 residents on Sherwood were put to the vote, and 8 voted yes, we would like sidewalks, and 5 no. 61% said yes, but the cutoff was 67%. So in 2020, 2019, sidewalks were not put into the reconstruction, and today sidewalks are not next to the school.
Wow.
If we go to the next slide, what is that? Someone's talking, but
Oh, sorry.
yeah, that was ours. So, but we had the opportunity the following year, if you can go to the next slide, please. Wilmette was putting together their new bicycle active transportation plan. And the team working on that was very receptive to our team. And I would just say, please, you have to take this story. This can never happen again. So please, can we look at what was a very similar sidewalk policy? And Bridget Berger, our chief engineer, was very receptive. She realized probably our angst. And the new policy, which was approved by the village board in 2021, includes priority sidewalks, which is my last slide. So priority sidewalks are written in, the names of those sidewalks are written into our master bike and active transportation plan. And what we have done with that, which is I think great, is we have an implementation plan. So every year our transportation commission sits down and says what projects are on the docket. And if one of our sidewalk projects, so often these are where there are missing sidewalks near a school, near a park, near public transportation. If one of these sidewalks are on the agenda, residents on that street are given the opportunity to come to the Transportation Commission meeting, to the municipal, this is followed by the Municipal Service Committee, and then finally the village board to share what they see as pros and cons to having sidewalks, but there is no vote. So approvals come through these commissions, committees, and finally to the Board of Trustee to determine if sidewalks will be built. I think this addresses equity, ages of all ages, and I just think it was a real win-win for our community and a good tickler to look at this in advance of any reconstruction or whatever for your communities. So thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. If I could just step in, because I watched Anne as she worked on this for a couple of years. And what I think was so brilliant about her approach was not only to get a lot of feedback from the people engaged, but to propose to modify our sidewalk policy when there was not a controversial sidewalk being considered. That's critically important. And I think the same is true for a lot of the ordinances that we are talking about. Make those ordinances better when no one is going to show up at meetings and fight against it. We now can override neighbors' resistance to sidewalks when the village determines that it is for the greater good and the safety of our community. So Kim or Ann moved to Colorado, just so you know, when your Go Green members move away, it doesn't mean they can, they have to stop helping out. So Ann, thank you for zooming in from Colorado and explaining that to us.
Beth, will you stop the screen share?
Yes.
And I want to just clarify that we're not trying to undermine anything by changing these sidewalk policies when there's not something controversial. We're trying to make them more fair, because right now a lot of the policies call for something like 3/4 support for a sidewalk and nothing else calls for 3/4 support of anything. So that's the rationale.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I am the final speaker about a local issue. Go Green Wilmette, as you know, was very involved with leaf blower restrictions, but as were a lot of other communities that kind of at the same time decided that there was no reason that we should have this amount of noise and pollution in our communities. COVID really helped, because with so many people at home, suddenly people really understood how bad it was. Our village mayor said he got more calls about leaf blowers during COVID than any other issue. So first of all, the Go Green Illinois group put together a task force that led to an 11 community 18-month-long working group. It was headed up by the mayors of Glencoe, Wilmette, and Highland Park. It came out with a long report that is based on science and data and could be very, very valuable to your own community. So if you don't have restrictions on leaf blowers in your community, please get that report, read it yourself, and send it to decision makers. That's your elected officials, your mayor. Put it on a website. Let people know that in other communities, we are spared a lot of the worst of it. Evanston is considering banning gas-powered leaf blowers altogether. And so this is a big issue, but a lot of the work has been done. So this is an example of how our groups together, working together, can really make a difference. So Kim we know that report is permanently on the Highland Park website, so she is going to put the link in there. I also a lot of the communities really have strengthened their leaf blower restrictions, but many have no restrictions whatsoever. So now's the time to do that. I did want to mention that we had people from 38 different communities registered for this call. But in total, we have connections in 48 different communities, which gives you some idea of how we can all work together and make a difference. I love the fact that we were able to take things to the state level. Those state laws need our help to get passed. So thank you to all the speakers that spoke on state level laws. So at this point, we're going to do some Q&A. Kim, this is really hard for us because we're trying to manage the chat. Kim, do you have some questions in the chat that you'd like to address to our speakers?
I don't.
And if you get called on, you got to quickly unmute yourself, or do we not?
I don't think that there were really questions in the chat that didn't get responses in the chat.
Okay, if you all have a chance to look, there's a lot of good information in the chat. Remember that the communities that are most adjacent to you can be really good helpers. And if the suburbs adjacent to your suburbs do not have a Go Green group, that's important. You could help start those groups. So that would be terrific. Welcome also to some new groups. We've got some people from Geneva, Plainfield, DeKalb, Arlington Heights on, Buffalo Grove. Looks like they're getting really organized and doing a lot of good things. We've got people on from Naperville, Lake Bluff. So, so Kim, if we don't have any other Q&A, does
I have
anyone
a
want to?
question.
Okay, great.
The leaf blower ban is great. I love it. But the enforcement is really challenging. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, enforcement is really hard. Basically, someone just said to me, but it's based on neighbors, reporting their neighbors, and that is hard. Wilmette actually hired a whole nother enforcement person to help with it. Getting to, if your community requires lawn care companies to be registered, it's important that the village directly communicate with them and have on the permit process very clearly, remember, these are the restrictions, you cannot use them. It's important that I think eventually that any homeowner that allows a company to break the law on their land should get notified, potentially fined eventually. But yeah, there's no question that that is a very hard topic. Does anyone have any other ideas about how to better enforce it?
We have done a couple things in Highland Park. We have a door tag, like a door hanger. So when the enforcement officers come out, they do hang something on the door so that the resident is aware that their landscaper has violated it. So we're hoping to get some assistance and support from the homeowners to talk to their landscapers and put some pressure on them to use electric leaf blowers. The other thing that is very important is to make sure if you do have a leaf blower ordinance that the fine goes to the company, not the individual. So the person using the leaf blower was given the leaf blower by the company for which they work. And that's not the person who should be punished for using it. It's the actual company. So those are some things we've done here. We did not do very well at making our meeting 90 minutes, but we had lots of information that we shared. I want to make sure that everybody checks the website, gogreenillinois.org. There's a calendar of events there. People have listed some upcoming events that might be of interest, including, I believe LaGrange is having a Dark Skies program coming up in December. So Beth, do you have the list? Should we go do community sharing or should we not because of our timing?
Okay, so I think we should stay on for community reports. Obviously, people who came to just hear the program, feel free to sign off if you want to, but this is a time when we allow groups to talk about things that will be helpful to the rest of us. Not just to report out, but what are you doing that could be replicated? Instead of calling on every community, please put in the chat if you have something to share that you would like to us to call on you for. So
just put the name of your community in the chat.
Yeah, just put the name of the community and we'll call on you. I'm gonna put these in. Okay. Okay, looks like Des Plaines wants to say something. Katie Peterson.
Hi, friends. Very excited to save the date for May 7th, 2025. We got the Des Plaines Theater again. They are letting us use their venue for free. Our topic this year will be Nature Heals, mental health and wellness in nature. Tomorrow, the Forest Preserve District of Cook County is coming out to Isaac Walton to help us create programs that will be advertised in their brochure and on their website. Very excited about that. Thank you.
Sorry, I've lost the chat here.
Also, Kim and I will be meeting to plan the topics for 2025. It is great to get your feedback. Please email us with topics that you'd like to see us address.
Does anyone else have a report? Beth, do you have a report for Wilmette?
Well, we've had a very, very busy summer season with beach cleanups, yard tours, habitat work days, festivals, fairs, and now we do, we do a little bit less. We spend the winter, we always do a retreat. If your group has never done a half-day retreat, you might think about that, where you just talk about some of the bigger questions, you have lunch together, building the relationships amidst your board members, maybe inviting. What we do is we invite former board members and potential new board members to a meal when we're done. It's a good way to build your community. All of our groups are limited by capacity and that is basically people willing to work for nothing. So we understand what a challenge that is for all groups. A retreat can help with that. So anyone who else would like to say anything? And if not, we'll just sign off and see you. Okay, extended comment from
Vernon
David
Hills.
Silverman. You can all read that.
Seema from Vernon Hills would like to report.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick updates on a few things that we've done on the plastics front. So we did we joined the beach cleanup at Highland Park at Rosewood Beach. And it was interesting because we collected, the top items that were collected were all plastics. There were about 376 pieces of plastics that were collected, about 250 other plastic waste, as well as, food wrappers. But the other thing that we're doing on the plastics front is our students from Vernon Hills are actually going south of the city and trying to get more support for the polystyrene foam footwear ban. They're working in districts to get support for that particular legislation. And then the last thing I'll just add is that Jenny Futterman from Highland Park and myself, we were at the Lake County board meeting today, talking about our concerns about the hefty Renew Back program, highlighting how they haven't been successful in other communities and some of the health concerns from that.
Thank you, Seema.
Thanks.
I want to mention one other thing. Go Green Wilmette is working really hard on our school systems. We're working with District 39. We have an upcoming meeting with our superintendent. Nutra High School is taking a brand new step with a superintendent who is his last year. He is really focusing on integrating sustainability throughout the entire school community. So we're very excited about that. And in a new initiative, we are working hard with our Catholic high schools. Some of you may have Catholic high schools and or private high schools in your communities. There is a Green Schools Conference every year. There's a lot of resources. We had a great program 2 years ago called Sustainable Schools. You can find it on our YouTube channel. If you are not working with your school system, that is a huge opportunity. And there's a lot that you can do through the school districts, but it all takes time and effort.
Do we want to just call on a few people to see if anyone has updates?
Well, does anyone else want to step in and give a quick report? So
yes, I do. This is
okay.
Mary Monday from Greener Glenview. I just want to mention some programs that we have coming up. A week from yesterday at the Glenview Public Library, we're having a program called Innovations for a Healthy, Clean Energy Home. We have speakers from Citizens Utility Board, Rewiring America, an energy auditor, and also Tom Bassett-Dilley, who is an award-winning architect in the sustainability field. So that is going to be great. It is in person only at the Glenview Public Library next Monday evening, 7 o'clock. Also, we're having Judy Pollock, February 24th. She is the Chicago Bird Alliance president. She's going to be talking about gardening, native gardening to bring birds to your yard. And then in April 7th, we're having landscape designers from North Branch Landscape, native landscapers, talking about native landscaping to bring pollinators and designing for beauty doing it, which might help you avoid getting complaints from your weed ordinance neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Anything from Riverwoods or Lincolnshire?
Jenny Futterman has
Jenny.
some.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just add in Highland Park, we have achieved community wildlife habitat certification through National Wildlife Federation. Huge thanks to Leslie Shad for showing us the way. So we'll be hopefully planning a celebration and announcement of that, you know, when it's a little more outdoorsy. And on January 27th, we have a tentative date with our library to be offering a program reducing your digital footprint and, you know, the carbon associated with all of our cloud savings and AI and whatnot. So that'll be one of our other members working on that with our library. When we get the full details, we'll share it with everyone. And just to kind of tag on to the school idea, our district is actually moving forward during renovations with geothermal and some solar panels. A lot of that is with help from the IRA. And, you know, it wasn't part of the plan until my husband went to the board meeting and said, blah, 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 listen up, you got it wrong. This is how we do it. I've had success in my district, thanks to 7 generations ahead, getting composting going and reusables and trying to reduce a lot of the single-use plastics and streamlining our food system at school. So you know, show up, even if you don't have kids there, or if you know someone with kids in the district, show up and get the pressure on. So I think that's it. Kim, is there any other HP thing I'm missing?
I guess the one thing is you mentioned that Jay got the school district IRA money to move forward with renewable energy, but the park district seems to be on the other side of the coin on this and is not interested in renewables and says that they're too expensive in a new building that they're building. So just because one governmental agency has the information doesn't mean they all do.
Agreed. Working on the letter.
Okay, I'm going to pop in again. Reducing, so we talked about the new state law about reducing waste at really, really big events. Unfortunately, I guess the big Illinois State Fair is exempt, which is really unfortunate because it's a massively large event. But I hope all of you will look at the events that are in their own communities and see whether your group can work with your village to see if you can reduce the waste. Also, any events that you go to, if you can plan ahead, if you know the organizers and plan ahead, you could really reduce the waste event, reduce the waste. I went to a multi-community Chamber of Commerce breakfast and everything was 100% throwaway, including coffee and styrofoam cups. So that means I need to talk to the heads of those chambers of commerce and say, how can we help you never do it that way again? It takes getting out ahead of those events to reduce the waste, though. Go Green Wilmette has put together a little party kit of 40 reusable metal cups that can be used for juice or wine or soft drinks, as well as some actual metal flatware that we're going to be offering to people who are hosting parties, just to see if we can't get people to move away from the single-use plastic. Anyone else? Okay, Kim. So we do have a leaders meeting in December. That's a smaller meeting, no program, just with the leaders, where we have a 1-hour brown bag lunch kind of a meeting. If you are a brand new group, let's make sure you have one leader on that invitation list. And in January, we'll have our next program, and we hope that you will join us for that.
And is that January 14th, I believe?
It's the second, it's always, yep, January 14th, 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Yes, so thank you all for being here.
Okay, thanks so much. Kim, why don't you and I stay on? And thanks to all the good work that you're all doing. It's more important than ever. We've got to make state and local things happen. Thank you.
Do you want to stop the recording?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kim.